Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tech and Beer. We're back. It's the first episode since the pandemic, so I'm super excited. We've got a great topic, we've got a great new location, and we've got some great guests today. So let's get started. Let's introduce. We've got Giles, guest number one. Nice to have you back, Giles. You were the original guest number one.
I know, oh my God, that's been a couple of years, hasn't it?
It has.
Time
Excellent.
goes. Yeah.
Good to have you back. We've got Rob with us remotely from Ottawa. How's it going, Rob?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Pleasure to be on the show. Thanks very much. Giles, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Good, nice to meet you, mate.
It's absolutely wonderful to be here, and thanks for having me join.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Rob. And we've got Huehn, the owner and server of TAPestry Beer Bar here in Sackville, Nova Scotia.
There you go, gents.
How's it going, Huehn?
Good, it's going really well. Thanks for joining me here.
It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you very much for having us. Yeah.
Thank you, yeah.
What have you served us here?
I've served up the #1 seller here at TAPestry Beer Bar. This is the Backyard Blonde. It's made by Topside Brewing Co. just over in Bedford.
Okay.
One-man operation. He runs a nano brewery out of his garage. He started it only about 2 years ago or so, but we're helping him develop that brand by keeping him permanently on here at TAPestry Beer Bar, and this blonde has been really, really well received.
Fantastic. That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about this place, because it's a month or so in now. How's it going?
It's going really well. It's been really well received. So we are a exclusive 100% Nova Scotia craft beer bar. We also serve cider and wine, also locally sourced as well. I have gone out of my way to go after really, really small breweries from outside of the province. So I kind of, my philosophy is, why would you want to go all over to Yarmouth and to Shelburne and to Sydney when all you have to do is come right here to TAPestry Beer Bar to enjoy the best that Nova Scotia has to offer.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's so many great microbreweries in this province.
There really are,
Fabulous,
yeah.
yeah.
So as of yesterday, we've now supported 30 breweries.
Wow.
So we're at the halfway mark, but I intend to cross them all off my list.
Why
That
not?
is awesome. Well, congratulations.
cool.
And
Thank
thank
you
you
so
very much
much
for having us here today.
Thanks for coming,
thank
guys.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That's delicious.
That's a good summer beer.
It is, yeah. On a hot day like today, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's perfect, yeah.
Excellent. So our topic today, Giles, is data management.
Right.
It's an interesting topic, and we're fortunate. So this episode's kind of supported and brought to us by Cohesity. So we thank Cohesity for that. And Cohesity are a data management company. So what does, I guess my first question, and I'll throw it out to you first, Giles, what does it mean? What is data management?
Well, it's a good question. I sort of come at not from a deep technology perspective, but more from that governance level. And I think of it, data management for an organization to me today is two things. One is treating your data as an actual asset. So something that you can put on the books. That came out of the Infonomics guy, Doug Laney wrote the book on it. And it's really about seeing your data as a corporate asset so that you can put it on the books, that you can increase the valuation of your company. The other side of it is it's part of looking at data as the foundation to getting to knowledge, right? The DICAR model, so data, information, knowledge, action, results.
Right.
You're not going to get to the knowledge part if you don't have your data well managed.
Right.
And that's that whole thing from the governance of the data to the technology that you use and how you run it through the organization to get to knowledge so that you can extract the knowledge. So you want to get the right information to the right person at the right time to make the right decision.
Right.
If you don't have good data management, that's not going to happen.
That makes sense.
Has to start there, yeah.
And how about you, Rob? So didn't introduce you very well, I apologize. You're a architect for Cohesity. So from your perspective and Cohesity's perspective, what is data management?
Well, data management, to Giles's point, really, he hit it pretty much spot on. It can encompass so many different things, but really, when you boil it down to the most simplistic thing, it's about, processing and ingesting and storing any organization's data, right? Effective data management, of course, is critical to any IT system. And, I'd like to think maybe if we look at an organization, databases, as an example, are probably some of the most common platforms. They hold a collection, a variety of data. They're updated, they're managed, but they're used in both transactional processing systems, customer records, sales orders, things of that magnitude, And then a lot more now we're seeing data warehousing, right? That can consolidate large data sets, helps with BI and analytics. And, I think that's where a lot of massive data sets are coming along. And that's kind of some of the problems I think that Cohesity kind of identified and came up with some solutions that can help with that. So.
Yeah, I see more and more we're talking, you'd say data warehousing, and then we're getting to data lakes.
Right.
When are we going to get to data oceans?
Probably not far away.
Probably not.
Sure.
Yeah.
The amount of data that's being produced today, it's growing exponentially, right? It's incredible.
Yeah, it's funny. They say, data's the new oil. The Economist came out with it. I get that, but data, like oil, is a finite resource. We're going to run out of it, right? But data, we're just creating more and more and more.
Right.
To the point that governments internationally are figuring out how they're going to tax the data.
Right.
Right. Like, so as soon as government starts taxing you, you've gotten to a certain point.
You've got to a certain size of collateral or momentum's happening. Exactly.
Yeah.
So Rob, what from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges and risks facing organizations today around managing their data and supporting it?
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things, of course, when you look at good data management practices and whatnot, typically most organizations divide this into so many different types of silos, right? You have silos for, your tier 1 applications. You have another silo for, data protection, which is imperative. When we talk about these data lakes and things like that, you have another huge data silo for test and dev, another data silo for analytics, BI. And when you create all these different silos, you really separate the data, and it leads to, what we like to refer to at Cohesity as kind of mass data fragmentation, right? Really just spilling the data everywhere. You have redundant copies of the data, and it just continues to proliferate and grow. And then, I think to Giles' point, we're going to get to these data oceans just because there's so much of it, right? So, at Cohesity, what we're really looking to do is to collapse all of these data silos and put that data into a centralized area where we can combine different workflows like data protection, file and object storage, test and dev workflows, of course, and then analytics and insight too, into that one common platform, and really look to reduce an organization's TCO, and bring down OpEx and CapEx costs at the same time.
Makes sense.
That's interesting you say that the silos, because sort of on the human side of things, there's always been silos in organizations. So marketing had their data, sales, finance, manufacturing operations. And it was like these data silos. Data was your power within the organization because I have that data and you need it from me. And it was sort of a way of job security, if you will.
Right.
And we still see those silos. And I think it's one of the keys of business to say we've got to stop those silos and break it down because it's all about collaboration today. Right. And I love that Cohesity because they're breaking down the silo at the technology level, which you can bring into the functional workflow level so that people are sharing data and you've got less of those silos. Yeah.
That raises a good point that I hadn't even thought about. It's that human, that knowledge that people acquire over time of doing a job for a certain period of time, and then they leave the job or they don't write it down. I'm bad for that. I don't always write stuff down, and something happens and changes, and that information or data doesn't get passed on effectively.
That's
probably a big challenge.
Yeah, tacit knowledge in an organization. So there's implicit, there's explicit, and then there's the tacit knowledge. And a lot of organizations aren't very good at capturing that tacit knowledge. And these people that have worked there for 10, 15, 20 years, and then they disappear and all that knowledge is lost. Well, that's data as well. That should be captured as part of your data management policy. Yeah.
And how about when it comes to using the data? So you've got these data stores in places, but what ways are organizations trying to use data now? Like, from a human perspective and a technological one, I guess. I'll throw it out there to either of you, whoever wants to go first.
Rob, you go ahead, mate.
Well, and just to kind of step back for one quick sec to Giles' point, when we talk about all these different data silos, right? You have them across all these different organizations. You have a proliferation of data, but at the same time, data is the new currency. It's the new oil, right? So in the event that maybe somebody leaves an organization, how do we then find that data, with so much data proliferating around the organization. And one of the neat things that I think we did here at Cohesity, our founder is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Mohit Aaron, and he was actually one of the lead engineers on the Google file system. So if we're talking about a file system that is very large and of course spans the globe, this is probably the de facto, right? So I think he's taken a lot of what he's learned in his career and implemented it into the Cohesity data platform. And really, it starts with very simplistic things, but things that we use every day, like Google as an example. Anytime we're looking for something, I quickly and very often refer to Google. We've incorporated that same type of search and functionality into the Cohesity data platform. So it allows our customers to go in and use things like keyword searches or wildcard searches and to find the data very quickly that they're looking for. So instead of that data being dark and useless, in reality, it gives our customers insight into the data that's already there, right? So I think that's one of the key things that we're doing with the data platform. But Giles, I'll ask you what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely bang on, and you brought up search, which I thought was really interesting because search is the first thing we do as a human, and I'm not talking about search engines, although that's definitely part of it. We search the world around us to the cues. Where's the doors? Where's the windows? How do we navigate the world? How do we gain knowledge? That's what we do as humans. So search is a fundamental element that we do towards gaining knowledge. And data now is a part of how we search our world through search engines and through corporate data that we've got. So aside from just managing your data, once you've got your data, you've got to have good governance in place, but then you've got to have the information management afterwards, because you're turning the data into the information. Once you turn the data into your information, that's when you can start getting the knowledge, that K part in the DICAR model. And that's all about the good governance with the data and data management, then your information management, then your knowledge management, turning that into that tacit, implicit, and explicit knowledge. That's when you build your dashboards, right? So that you can pull out, like Cohesity has the analytics platform. So they've sort of seen this, I guess, cohesive view. That would be the basis of Cohesity, this, that you can do on Amazon platforms and Azure as well. But Cohesity's got it in that sense of understanding that data has to go through to analytics where you can make a decision.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What? So one of the things that's come out of with the pandemic and stuff, and the remote workforce and decentralization of a lot of things, like what impact does location have on managing data today? Because we talked about silos already. Those silos can be in dramatically different places. They could be in an end user's workstation. They could be in a public or private cloud, anywhere on the planet, right? Does that have an impact on the challenges or the complexity of managing the data in any way? Maybe Rob?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does. Over the last year and a half, especially being here at Cohesity, we've seen a huge shift in the way the workforces operate. A lot of workforce organizations have gone to cloud-based models, SaaS-based offerings, and I think that adoption rate has picked up probably 3 to 4x versus what we've seen. The adoption rate is significantly quicker. So, excellent point. How do we look to manage that? So, at Cohesity, we introduced a product that we call Helios, which is really our control plane, if you will. And it allows organizations, whether they are on-premise, maybe out at the edge, or in the public cloud, and really could be any public cloud. We will take what we've learned from our on-premise experience and bring that to a centralized control plane, or Helios, if you will, and still provide things like, data protection, and of course, indexing. Everything that we ingest within the Cohesity data platform is indexed. So it provides organizations a central location to be able to retrieve data, work with data, clone data very, very efficiently without consuming additional data. And while at the same time also reducing the storage footprint through things like, inline data deduplication and inline compression, so that we're never storing multiple copies of the same file over and over and over. And whether you're on premise or at the edge or in a public cloud, we do provide that centralized control plane that allows users to very quickly and easily use that kind of familiar Google search that I talked about before to find that data.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think one of those challenges of work from home too has been that you've got so many other apps that got rolled out during this. You've got Microsoft Teams, you've got Slack, you've got Monday, you've got Trello, you know, all these different apps where a lot of data is generated and not necessarily captured into where it needs to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's been one of the challenges of a lot of organizations, is that and sometimes what happens in many organizations is, yeah, here's your Office 365, here's your environment, that's what you're going to work in. But people, you know, a team will go and say, yeah, but Trello really works for us, or we want to use Slack. And so they'll go and use these applications outside of what is corporately approved.
Yeah.
And that's been, I think, part of the challenge of the work from home. And when you want to it's all about getting the right data in there and collecting it the right way. And so part of that is that human challenge, because humans will always find a workaround. Yeah.
Path of least resistance, right? Everyone's got their preference about what they want to do about this or that, and they try and find a way to do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, how about the usage of the data? We've got this data growing. Like, what percentage of it are we using effectively?
Yeah, you're probably less than 5%. Yeah. I think we're only just beginning to develop the tools to really effectively manage the data. And if you're a company that has IoT devices and you've got fleets of vehicles and you're getting all that kind of data that's coming in, the larger the enterprise, the more data you're collecting. But even a small business can be collecting vast amounts of data today. It really makes it a challenge, you know, given all the data sources that you've got, and to understand exactly where you're pulling your data in from.
Yeah, for sure.
And the origins. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think maybe just to Giles's point as well, you know, you're absolutely right. I think 5% is probably accurate, and I think at least here at Cohesity, what we find is a lot of organizations tend to, you know, keep that very aged out or maybe that dark data running on something like a very expensive, what's called a primary storage array or something like that, and the data just sits there and collects dust. You know, I run into a lot of customers that, through acquisitions, right, have absolutely no idea what could be sitting on these. You know, so through integration in our product, you know, what we've done is integrated things like very simple policy-based data migration. So we can actually go out, we can take a look at aged data, maybe if you will, data that's maybe 90 days old, 120, 3 years, or data over a specific size, right? And we can help our customers through automated migration of moving that data from something like a tier 1, very expensive storage array onto something that is, you know, significantly more cost-effective, like our data platform. And we'll leave behind essentially a stub, if you will, or a marker. And you know, nothing changes from a user's experience or perspective. It's just that the data is automatically moved to a more cost-effective class of storage.
Yeah, and there's a lot of organizations create data exhaust as well. So it's the data that they don't need and they won't use, but they could actually monetize that. Like take BMW, they got all this brake information from the vehicles that was getting uploaded at the dealerships that was kind of useless to BMW because they don't make brakes. But they packaged that up and they sold it to brake manufacturers.
Interesting.
So they could make better brakes.
Yeah.
The data to them was useless, but to someone else it had value. So what they were able to do then was help cover the cost of their data management by generating revenue from data exhaust. That's part of infonomics, right?
Yeah.
That's monetizing your data. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. So how does the average organization know that they've got data that's worth something to somebody?
Well, they don't. Like, it's funny, we helped an organization a few years ago, an elevator manufacturer. They wanted data from 300 buildings, 15 stories and above. They wanted the HVAC data.
Okay.
Presumably to make a better elevator. I don't know. But it was amazing. Like when we talked to the HVAC companies, they're like, what do you mean? All that data is good for is a building management system. It's like, who wants it? And we had to tell them, but we ended up acquiring that data on behalf of the manufacturer.
Interesting.
From all those buildings. It was a ton of work, and trying to get people's head around your data actually has value beyond just you.
Right.
Yeah, someone else may want it.
But you've got to be collecting it to be able to have it to start with, right?
Well,
Which is the other interesting point.
Yeah, you do automatically. Like if you're an HVAC manufacturer, you've got, it goes into building management systems. You're automatically collecting that data. If you've got IoT devices, you're a manufacturer. Like that's equipment maintenance is what you want to use it on the manufacturing floor. But that information may be useful to another manufacturer. You're not going to want to sell it to a competitor, of course, but you can anonymize the data as well. You can package it up, and so it's
makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. So Rob, from Cohesity's perspective, when we talk about the challenges, around managing it, like, how does Cohesity address them? I mean, you touched on it a little bit with the single kind of screen that they can, Helios is it, you said, which is the management portal for managing the data. Like, what does that look and feel like to somebody on a daily basis using it to manage different data sources?
Yeah, really good question for sure. So I think from a management perspective, our control plane, if you will, we refer to it as Helios, which is our control plane. And it does provide that single UI, single pane of glass, whether you are, again, on-premise or at the edge or in a cloud. And it's simple. It's a very simplistic HTML interface that allows, our users or data management specialists the ability to, provision, storage, protect storage, look at things like test and development. And, Giles made a really good point as well, anonymizing data and whatnot. How can we do that? And a big thing that we found with a lot of organizations is our test dev workflow and what that looks like. And we've taken the ability, just like you have kind of on your phone, if you will. If you're a Google user, you have the Play Store. If you're an Apple user, you have the the iStore. Or I'm not an Apple guy, but So with our platform, we actually have the ability to add applications, right? These are applications that we've developed, we've partnered with other organizations on, and we also have applications that customers have developed. And it allows for things like, like Giles just mentioned, anonymizing data, or if you have GDPR type data, and you need to filter and clean that out, but maybe some of your devs want to work with a data set that's 5 minutes old or an hour old. We have the capability of anonymizing a lot of that data, whether it's a SIN number or credit card number or whatnot, and then giving these devs fresh working sets. And again, this is all managed through that single UI, which we refer to as Helios. So whether, again, you're working on-prem or you're working in the cloud, Helios ties everything together from a centralized pane of glass. And the UI itself is, really divided into, 6 different workflows, allowing our customers to work on things like data protection or provision files and objects, or provision, our test dev workflow as well. So very simplistic and easy to use.
Perfect, makes sense.
That was interesting you brought that up, Rob, about, on data and privacy and GDPR. That got me. Canada's privacy laws are changing.
Right.
So they've tabled a new law, the CMPP, I think it is, because right now it's PIPEDA, and the only teeth on it is your company can be fined $100,000 for a data breach.
Right.
The new one, the company can be fined between 3 and 5% of their gross revenues, up to $25 million.
Wow.
But if your past year's revenues were higher, then they can base the charge on that. Plus, it's got transparency, so they can force the company to be transparent in how it's dealing with it. And they have order-making powers, which they haven't had at this point. So this is a really huge shift. This is like Canada catching up to GDPR to some degree. So data management is going to be not only important just from a cost center, but it's going to be important from a regulatory perspective.
Right.
And these laws are going to have teeth behind them. So you've got to have good data management, or you're in big trouble.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, when you've got these kind of regulations coming in, what kind of human-based processes are important to ensure that you're compliant? And because you can have the tools, but you've got to have those other requirements as an organization that you use the tools properly, right?
Exactly, it boils down to digital governance. So there's data governance, which is an aspect of digital governance, and there's always a tension between the folks that look after data governance in an organization and the people that are managing the data.
Right.
Because they're sort of seen as the bad guy and the overwatching guy, but now you've got to have it starting at the board level. So that board of directors needs to understand the new privacy laws. They need to understand data management. They have to look at it from a governance perspective at the corporate level. That has to spill down through the organization, and the executive need to look at digital governance as a whole. So not just your data, but your IT systems and everything else. So so the human aspect at the board level is you should have a standing committee that is in charge of IT.
Yeah.
that looks at your cybersecurity, looks at your data and all the rest of it at a board level every year as a fundamental.
So how prepared do you think the average organization is?
Completely unprepared.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a number of them. I've done 8 or 9 digital governance projects in the past year. Usually they're underinsured, so they don't have, they're either paying too much or they're not even paying, they don't have any cyber insurance at all. So it's a mix. None of them have had a standing committee for IT governance, except for one. So most of them, and it's not their fault. It's not a bad thing. It's that business, like government, is trying to catch up to the pace of technology.
Yeah.
Right? And so once you get all that in place, it's amazing. All of a sudden they're like, holy cow, we didn't know we needed this.
Yeah.
And you know, it even impacts the corporate bylaws,
right?
From that very high level all the way down to privacy and how you're managing, collecting information from multiple spheres.
Exactly, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Awesome, well thanks guys. That was informative and interesting, and some helpful tips, I think, for a lot of organizations. It's you know, it's looming, it's on the horizon, it's here, and it's a real challenge that people have to face and deal with. And I think, you know, the combination of the technology that companies like Cohesity provide and the human aspect and digital governance that they can put in place, that's what they need. There's a framework there that they can start to use and build upon. So I'm going to just ask you guys, so one of the things we're going to add in Tech and Beer is a little recap on the tech news that's happened recently and get some opinions. So you got 30 seconds each.
Okay.
Both give me your opinion on these
like the
little
debaters.
bits of, exactly. Make it a little bit fun. So the first thing is going to be Bitcoin. So recently we've seen a big governmental push against kind of Bitcoin, both from, not necessarily against, but like against decentralization. You've got China that's like locked out Bitcoin, I think pretty much exclusively. You've got the UK that just clawed back hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin from certain organizations because it's being used for money laundering. You've got other governments considering that creating their own digital currencies. What does that mean for Bitcoin and digital currency? I'll let Rob go first.
You step.
30 seconds, Rob, no pressure.
Well, you know, I have to be honest, I'm not I don't partake in Bitcoin too much, but I mean, the decentralization piece, you know, I think it's tough because of all the different regulations that every different country has, right? I think we will have a hard time getting to something that would be global. And you know, we have so many different varieties of cryptocurrency. I mean, anytime Elon Musk tweets something about some form of cryptocurrency, you know, we see a huge boost. And it's funny, it's, you know, named after a dog, right? So, you know, I think cryptocurrency will be a little bit of time until we get standardized on that. But you know, Giles might have definitely some better input than I would.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, any technology, when we bring a new technology out, we go crazy and we use it, like social media. Oh, this is going to make democracy great and awesome, and then until it didn't. Now the dictators have, and it's a mess. So I think crypto coins going through that. I think the fight now it's a systemic fight. So the international financial systems and banks, they're like, no, let's have digital currencies because they can be better managed and governed. And cryptocurrencies are so wild and woolly, and it's kind of like the Wild West, and it's impossible to predict the future. But I think what we'll get to is some sort of hybrid model where you'll have some cryptocurrencies and then you'll have digital currencies as well.
Right.
China has to control everything. They're a communist state. It's all about control, right? They're an autocracy, just like Russia. So it's cryptocurrencies and digital coins are becoming a geopolitical issue. They already are. They're also becoming an issue for cybercrime, and there's no regulation. And decentralization, you know, like the decentralized web, it's great, but it also comes with its challenges. You have to have some kind of governance in there.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next one, commercial space travel. Branson versus Bezos. Like Richard made it up into almost space, I guess, depending on the technical technical limit to where you put it. But he made it up into space last week. Jeff's doing it tomorrow, I think, and taking an 18-year-old. Is this just a fad? Like, it seems so. Like I watched the live stream, saw Richard go up there, and it was fantastic, right? But it was a few minutes. Super expensive. Like, will people really be doing this in 5 years, Giles?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, any child born today will never know a time that humans didn't live in space.
Wow.
What do you think about that? So we're out there, we're getting off the planet. You know, from the one hand, people said, hey, this money could have gone into, you know, dealing with poverty, feeding people, all those stuff. Well, the future of humanity is off the planet. That's where we're going. And so there's a little bit of entertainment value, but I think at the other side of it, it's humans are aspirational.
Right.
And we love to look towards big things. And I think this is sort of, let's look to this is exciting. Like, this is the expansion of humanity. We finally left the planet. So
Yeah.
I look at it from that side.
Makes sense. Rob?
Yeah, I would agree for sure. I mean, you know, space travel is definitely something that we will. I firmly believe we will see continued investment into, and we'll see more of it. You know, I remember being a small child watching a NASA rocket go off, and I think it was Reagan who was in the White House at the time, and he said by the year 2000. You know, a quarter of the population will be living in space. Well, I don't think we're there. That may have been a little ambitious, but you know, just like underwater adventure, right? You know, I think the sea is something that is really just partially discovered at this point, and I think, of course, the next step will be space exploration and what that looks like for people that are looking to travel there. So I'm very excited with it. I think it's going to be great. But you know, Did Branson go to space? I read some reports saying he didn't. He did it. Who knows? You know.
He says he did. You know, the official NASA border of space, he was just below it. I think. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah. Who knows?
He probably
That's
got
the
off
debate.
the plane and gave the pilot a lot of grief.
Yeah. But awesome, guys. Thanks. What a great first episode back post-pandemic, and we got a great new location, great topic. I appreciate you both as guests, and cheers.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.